I'm Insomniac, and this is the Henry London Sport Skeleton Dial.
Oh, you!
Insomniac.
First, I'd like to give a big shout out to Jeffrey for sending this to me. He actually ordered it brand new and had it shipped right to me so I could unbox it and review it before he even got a chance to touch it. And that's pretty cool. Now, some of you might have noticed that I wasn't all too confident in the intro to this video saying the name of it, and that's because it's listed on a few different sites under a few different things, and Henry is, I'm pretty sure, the brand. London, I guess, is where they're based out of, or the design is based out of, or something like that. Not really even sure if that's part of the name. Sport is really just the style of the watch, and skeleton dial I don't really think is part of the model. It just has a partially skeletonized dial. But it's almost like this watch really has no name, so they just combined a bunch of attributes that the watch has and made that the... I don't know. So that's what I'm going to call it, because I don't really know what else it would be called, but that's why I seemed a little off about the intro. Well, let's get into this watch piece by piece and see how it does. The case on this watch is super basic. It's done in a black brushed stainless steel with a very uncomplicated shape that just flows right into the curves for the lugs. The case back is polished stainless steel with an exhibition case back so you can see the Miyota movement in action, and around the outer edge of the case back you have various information about the watch. The bezel is a unidirectional dive style bezel with markings for every 5 minutes. It has a thin but fairly grippy texture to it. Turning the bezel has a fairly good feel with solid clicks and good stability, although there is a little bit of play in the action from side to side in any position. The crown on this watch is probably the most disappointing part of the case. It's a screw down type, which is great for water resistance, but gripping the crown isn't as easy as it should be because the crown is a lot thinner than I think it should be, and the lack of a company logo or branding of any kind makes this side of the watch look fairly cheap, being that the crown is a rather large diameter. Under the domed mineral crystal, you have a very simple dial. The main focus of this dial is, of course, the open heart, as they call it, the hole in the dial where you can see the balance wheel and escapement doing its thing. The rest of the dial is a mix of pleasing simplicity and cheap. I really like the large exaggerated hour markers and the fact that there's a printed 12, 3, 6, and 9, and the minute track is clean and easy to find, but the company name just looks kinda cheap, and the font for the brand name as well as the 12, 3, 6, and 9 all look like some kind of free font you get on Google. Also, I'm not a big fan of the open heart thing to begin with, but without some kind of border around the edge of that opening, it literally just looks like there's a hole in the dial rather than an intentional highlight of the watch's heartbeat. The hands are also a mix of pleasing and not so pleasing. I love the fact that all 3 hands are the perfect length for this dial, and I really like the fact that the second hand is curved at the end to flow with the curved edge of the dial, as is the minute hand, but the hands don't make much sense after that. You have a sword-shaped hour hand, but then the minute hand is just a thin, shapeless stick-style hand, and the second hand looks good with the exception of the lume-filled arrow tip. I like the shape of it, but I can't figure out why that arrow tip is so far down the second hand instead of being further out. The hands just don't make too much sense here. So the dial is simple and clean, but there are definitely some design flaws in my opinion. Time at a glance on this piece is its greatest strength. The dial is a flat black, the markers are white, and the hands all have white lume filling. Everything is clean and spaced out, there are no complications on the dial, and the cutout for the open heart is far enough in towards the center of the dial that even between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock it's extremely easy to tell the time quickly, regardless of where the hands are. Very pleased with that. The strap on this watch, not unlike most of the other components, is a mix of good and disappointing at the same time. To start out with the positive, the strap is soft and pliable and stays well positioned on the wrist right out of the box. I found it to be very comfortable overall, The free loops hold the excess strap length in place well, and the buckle, although plain, looks the part with this watch and works well. What I don't like about it is the odd choice to mix materials. It's a thin layer of leather over mostly silicone. First of all, why? Why not just pick one or the other? Second, I don't see anywhere online where the leather on this strap is marked as waterproof or recommended for swimming, in which case I'd give it praise for having a great daily wear look while being super functional. But in this case, I'm assuming that a lot of water, especially salt water, would probably affect the thin layer negatively, and I'm assuming that over time there could be an issue of separation between the two materials. The silicone is also super lightweight and a lot more flexible than a solid leather strap, so it makes the watch feel slightly top-heavy when on the wrist. So only time will tell whether or not this strap is durable for the long haul, but overall I see it as a cool idea in theory, but a poor choice in execution. The lume on this watch, well, you know the story by now. Positive and negative at the same time. All of the hour markers are done in lume, and all three hands have lume filling. And when fully charged, it all glows large and even, giving the lume a decent quality look. But first of all, if you don't purposely charge the lume with a light source of some kind at close range, the lume really doesn't charge. To the extent that before I did this test, I didn't think the watch had any lume. Walking out of a bright room into the dark, you really can't read anything on this watch. And even when fully charged, the lume just doesn't seem to last. You can probably see it fading quickly right here on screen as I'm talking about it. So it's almost a feature that you can just say you have, but one that doesn't really serve its purpose. And last we have value. Now the full MSRP of these watches is $375, and if that's what these watches sold for, it would be an easy 1 or 2 out of 10, because for $375 there are tons of better watches you can buy. But as like with most MSRPs, the MSRP on this watch isn't what you pay for it. As of the time of this video, you can find it online for about $130. For $130, you are getting a fairly neutral styled watch that looks good with most types of clothing. It's fairly comfortable to wear, it's pretty accurate. And for those of you who like the open heart thing, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of it, but some people like being able to see some of the inner workings of the watch without having to take it off and flip it over. You also have that. So I really do think there is a pretty good amount of value packed into this watch for $130. Where it still falls short though is if you were to compare it to other watches. You're probably thinking, what other watches for $130? What other mechanical automatic watches are there for $130? Believe it or not, the lower end market for mechanical watches is becoming pretty damn competitive, and I could name one right off the top of my head that you've seen me review on this channel fairly recently if you're subscribed here, the Orient Defender. For those of you who haven't seen my review on that watch, definitely check it out and you'll understand why for the same price I'm saying that this, although a pretty decent value, still isn't a great value, because you do have some other competitors out there, like some Seikos. Actually, I think the SNZ, can't remember the whole rest of the number of what the model was, but the one Seiko that I did on this channel previous to this was also about the same price and had a bit more to offer. So, like I'm saying, this is a fairly good value if you were looking for this aesthetic, you like the open heart thing, and overall it's not a bad watch. I had a pretty good experience with it overall, but I still think there are some better values out there for about the same price. Well, again, a big shout to Jeffrey for sending this in. I really appreciate that. That was very cool. If you're enjoying these watch reviews, definitely share them. That always helps me out when you do that. Definitely subscribe so you know when new videos are coming in. And if you would like to see a lot more watch reviews and help this channel move forward, definitely make sure you go to Patreon. It's a link at the top of the video description. It definitely shows some love and gives me some support to keep this going. Plus, you get 1 week early access to all of my new watch reviews as they come out, and direct access to me if you have certain suggestions or you want to send things in or whatever the case may be. So thanks for watching. I'll see you all at the next one.